Hey everyone, David here, back again to review yet another episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I understand there was no review for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. last week. That was because there was no new episode for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I don't know what ABC was broadcasting at the moment that took up S.H.I.E.L.D.'s slot, but I don't know. They had something to fill in that slot, and they're prolonging the season like they were doing last season. But hey, you know, I'm cool. I'm reviewing so many TV shows at this point that having one of these shows take a break for at least a week, it's kind of relieving for me. So here I am back to review S.H.I.E.L.D. once again, and this time it is for the 7th episode of Season 2, entitled The Writing on the Wall. Sounds like a Pink Floyd song. And even while taking a week off, S.H.I.E.L.D. does not let up. This is another episode that I actually quite loved. I can hardly think of anything bad about this episode. The episode is divided into two parts, with one part having the team of May, Triplet, Hunter, and Morse going after Ward and trying to figure out where he is, because obviously they were able to pick up on the fact that he's gone after the last episode, and once again they didn't waste any time having these characters figure out, well, where's Ward? No, you know, they're intelligent, so obviously they're going to be on that shit, and they're on the manhunt. And they also bring up a reason why there isn't a federal manhunt, because he was in federal custody, and I like that. You know, it limits, once again, the resources of our team, thus upping the stakes. So one half of the episode, and I use the term half loosely, one half of the episode had that team going after Ward, and then the other half had Coulson, Sky, trying to figure out what this writing means, when all of a sudden this woman turns up dead, but she has the symbols that Coulson has been carving on the wall, only this time they're carved into her body, and what I perceive to be one of the most gruesome things that S.H.I.E.L.D. has done so far. Not necessarily the goriest. I still remember in Season 1, that one girl that had the robotic eye or whatever, she cut that guy's arm off when he had the suitcase handcuffed to his hand, and I was like, whoa. So not necessarily the goriest, but definitely one that is something out of a David Fincher movie. The reason why I use the term half loosely is because the majority of the episode dwells on this story with Coulson trying to figure out what this writing means. But deservingly so, because I found this part of the story to be very just absorbing. I mean, I was just caught up in it and fully invested, because not only does it have characters that I like, Coulson, Sky has grown into her own. There's also some material there with Mac and Fitz talking to each other about Coulson, and material that really made sense. I really enjoyed this friendship, this bond that Mac and Fitz are developing, and what better common ground than their boss. But the entire plot with Coulson was just very intense. First of all, that scene where he climbs into the Animus. I'm going to call it the Animus, okay? I know it's not the Animus, but it looks like the Animus from Assassin's Creed. But when he climbs into that machine and he's retracing his steps, going back into his memories, I was at the edge of my seat. I'm like, man, could this be the point where they start to hint at the possibility of killing off Coulson? After all, he did say that, hey, if I go the way of Garrett, put a bullet in my head, and that made me feel that, okay, now Clark Gregg doesn't want to do the show anymore because he wants to do other things. After all, from what I hear, he's also a director, so maybe he wants to explore other things. But by the end of this episode, not only do we get the impression that Coulson is here to stay, as well as Clark Gregg, but so many revelations get unraveled through this plot. First of all, we bring back that guy at the end of the last episode, of the guy getting the symbols tattooed on him, and that made the audience, myself included, think, who is this guy? Why is he also going after these symbols? Could there be others infected with this alien gene or alien blood? And that's essentially what it turned out to be. This guy also got injected, but why? We then get the answer. Through his memories, we find out that this is actually one of the test subjects that Coulson was looking after before he was injected with the alien DNA by Fury, because Fury just wanted him around. He knew that this was the ideal candidate to take over him as director. However, before that, back in Season 1, it got revealed that Coulson actually was the head of this entire project before his memories got wiped completely as well. And so these people are actually the test subjects that Coulson was responsible to overlook, to talk to, and just like I said, that entire segment, not only was it filmed and edited very well, but it was just intense because it had characters that we really liked, and the stakes were immensely high, and things took a turn when Coulson pushed S.H.I.E.L.D. into that. I was not expecting that. I was like, oh my god, he's doing it. And so, being that he recognizes one of those people that they tested on, which used to be S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, he tracks him down, but the other guy got there first. And this led to the only weak part of this entire plot was the actual fight between him and the guy with the tattoos on his body. I don't know, there was just something about it that felt very TV. And that's not necessarily that much of an insult because this is a television series, but when the rest of the episode had me fully invested, this fight, not only did it feel obviously choreographed, but, you know, it just didn't do anything that made me feel like he was in danger because, I don't know, there was just something about it that made me feel like Coulson was going to be fine by the end. But, being that this show has taken certain turns, I would have definitely been surprised and would have been eating my words right now with a spoon if they had settled with a different outcome. However, the outcome was still satisfying because we get the reveal that these symbols, they're not a map like Sky pointed out in the last episode. It's actually a blueprint. This guy actually made it three-dimensional, which means that that's actually one of my tiny nitpicks about this episode, is that there's certain plot points that they didn't fully address, and I wish they could have explained it with at least 1 or 2 lines of dialogue, but they didn't. We didn't address how Sky knew, or at least had the assumption that this was a map, and we don't know if this guy that he tracked down, who turns down wanting to know about his past background of him being a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent and would rather remain a family man, I mean, he made this sculpture out of the city. I mean, shouldn't he be monitored to make sure that he's not crazy? Granted, now thinking about it, this is the final piece, so maybe once he figured it out, he went back to normal. Maybe he figured it out quicker than all the others, being that this guy was actually granted with the memory of the final piece as opposed to the other people. So maybe that could be the reason why this guy is just getting a pass and they're letting him go scot-free without double checking to make sure he's okay, but I digress. So, and like I said, it was just a minor nitpick, nothing to really tear down the episode for, but just this entire thing with Coulson was great. And like I said, at the end of this episode, we learned that this final piece not only, I guess you could say, sedates this other guy, the guy with the tattoos. I don't know what his name was, but the guy with the tattoos. Not only does it kind of sedate him, but it also cleanses Coulson of the convulsion to want to write. It's like this. It's like a homing beacon. In fact, Coulson points it out as well. It's like a homing pigeon. Once you find the thing that you were looking for, poof, you're good. You know, it's like. It's like when dogs hear, I don't know, I'm running out of analogies here, but you get what I'm saying. So once he figures out this piece, he's clear, he's not crazy anymore, he doesn't feel the need to write, he's got himself a map, and he's got himself the next objective, which means Coulson is here to stay, and I'm satisfied with that. And I'm also kind of happy that they ended this whole thing somewhat, because it's still there. Coulson still states that they got to go after this thing before Hydra does, and whatever this thing means, you know, where is the city located? Where is the city from? What kind of civilization lived in the city? If they're not there anymore, and if not, maybe they're still there. Who knows? All these different questions will be addressed as they go along, because their objective is to find this before Hydra does. So I enjoyed it that they ended it in one episode, but they dedicated the majority of the time of the episode to that plot. They didn't have it equal the amount of screen time to the other subplot that I'm going to talk about in a second, because, oh, we need to balance things out. No, they knew what needed more attention than the other, and I give the writers credit for that. Now, even though I didn't find it as intense and captivating as this whole plot with Coulson, I still really liked the subplot with the team of May, Triplet, Bobby, and Hunter going after Ward. And it didn't really move anywhere too significantly, but it did lead to a couple of interesting things. Along the way, we did have our team talking to one another, trying to figure out what their next move is, with a little bit of humor sprinkled here and there. And I really enjoy the chemistry of these four. In fact, I would be very happy to continue to see just these 4 going on missions as opposed to everybody. That way, they don't try to force chemistry with other team members, because I think they've struck gold with these 4. I really enjoy them. My only tiny complaint, once again, with this episode is that they didn't have a whole lot to do when you really think about it. I mean, if I were to clock the screen time that they had, it would probably be like a third, maybe even a quarter of what the story of Coulson took up. But still, like I said, the story with Coulson deserved that running time. It deserved that care. And they still managed to move things slightly with this whole subplot with Ward. They followed him to different cities. Hunter tracks him down to this tavern where Ward meets up with Hydra. And so I'm like, okay, here we go. He's going back home, so to speak. But then the interesting thing that I think I took away from this subplot is that he still kills those guys off. Which is obviously a Hydra meetup, based on how the bartender greeted him. But he kills them off, except for that one guy, the second-hand man to Whitehall. He's captured and gets turned into Coulson. And I'm like, okay, so this means one thing. Ward is still a bad guy because he still killed people, and he's still talking maniacally, evilish over the phone with Sky there at the end of the episode. But he's not working for anybody. He's stuck. He's actually telling the truth about what he said back in season 1, where he said, at least I think it was either in season 1 or at the very beginning of season 2. My mind's a little sketchy here, pun intended. But he is not necessarily loyal to Hydra. He was just loyal to Garrett for what Garrett did for him, which is just bailing him out of jail, since we now learn that he was the actual psychopath and the brother was not the one who killed the younger brother, which we learned by the end of by the end of that last scene that that's his main target, his brother. It's a little obvious that he throws the magazine saying, that's where I'm going. It would have been nice to learn it in a much more natural fashion in another episode, with him just leaving that room instead of saying, this is what I'm doing, you know. But just personal nitpicks aside, I think that they still did a good job of handling the material with Ward this time around, and really making him a very interesting villain. Because now he's not just a routine Hydra villain like Whitehall or that British guy or whatever his name was. They briefly mentioned his name by the end of this episode. Coulson said it, but I couldn't pick it up. But he's still a bad guy. You just don't know where his loyalties lie, but he does have a direct target, and he's going to go after it. And I'm enjoying that they're keeping the integrity of that character intact. So, once again, despite having a few nitpicks here and there, overall, I love this episode. I was at the edge of my seat, and I was very fully invested with almost everything that was going on. So, I'm just going to go ahead and give episode 8, The Writing on the Wall, a 9 out of 10. Because this is definitely one of my favorite episodes so far. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys thought of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. this week, and I'll see you guys next time.